All right, everybody. We got Larry Sharpe here. He's a Libertarian candidate for New York governor, has already run once before in 2018. And would you call yourself a
crazy?
established? Yes, you would call yourself any of those anything. Well, the reason that I thought you would be great to start this with, Larry, is because all right, the big news is Brian Stelter is going to leave CNN. Now, the way that the wording has been is that he's departing. Maybe
I love how just his little head pops up there in your video. That's nice. Just his head pops up. That's good.
I try not, I try not to like go low on people, but there's a funny Twitter account called Cat Turd, and and everyone knew what they were talking about. This account said potato heads gone.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'm not sure that helped, but anyway.
There we go. That's better, I think. Give him a little bit. Okay, good.
Oh, man. So, all right, Brian Selter is going to leave CNN.
Yep.
The wording is interesting because it's hard to gather through some of this stuff if, like, they cut his job or he chose to leave because they cut his show. I don't know for sure, but we know 100% reliable sources is going the way of the white buffalo, as my husband says. So, yep. It's not there anymore. Well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly when the end date is, but it's, I think, one of the longest running shows on CNN. And if people aren't familiar, you're familiar with the show, right? Would you like to explain to people what reliable sources is?
The issue is they tried. Reliable sources was supposed to be, this was the media checking in on the media, right? To make sure that there was no fake news. That's what it was supposed to be about. Showing that we are the reliable sources and everybody else is bad. That's what it was supposed to be about. But the big issue with CNN, I think, and the reason why this was obvious to me, is that CNN has no niche with Trump being gone. There's no niche for them to fill, right? The left-right paradigm is filled by MSNBC and Fox. And to be forward, whether you like MSNBC or Fox, they're better, they're easier to watch because they're obvious, right? Fox News prefers Republicans. Got it. MSNBC prefers Democrats. Got it. And they're open about it. CNN pretended to be neutral. So that pompousness, that idea of I'm better than MSNBC and Fox, I think that's what actually hurt them. If they just would have said, we're the anti-Trump network, that's it. If they would have done that, I think people would have respected them more, right? They tried to be above the fray, but were clearly not above the fray. Now, I'm someone who doesn't actually like, as a general rule, like watching mainstream news, but being in politics, I have to. So I don't watch CNN. I can't watch it. So I watch some of Fox and some of MSNBC. It gives me both sides of the story so I can have a conversation. I don't need CNN, and that's why no one's watching it. But here's the problem. CNN actually is good at something. They're actually good at like regular news. Like if a fire breaks out or a plane crashes, they're actually good at that. They actually have a bunch of people all over the place and the infrastructure still exists. They're not bad at that. If you notice what they make their money on now, their biggest sellers now are documentaries, right? The Princess Diana story or RFK behind the scenes. That kind of thing CNN does very well because that's just investigative stuff. And they're actually good at that. And my opinion here, and I'm going to tell you right here on your show, Allison, CNN within 2 years will be a documentary channel. It will just be a channel that creates documentaries that it can sell because it can make money off of that. People will buy those. They'll go on Netflix. They'll go on Hulu. They'll buy those. USA Network will buy it. Whatever. A&E will buy it. They'll buy their documentaries so they'll make money off it. And that's what they're good at. The opinion stuff they do is terrible. It's horrible. You can go someplace else, get some real data. They'll do a good job of it.
But where's the line in CNN between their opinion stuff and the real news? Like you're saying, it seems like they interject opinion into everything, even sometimes the plane crashes.
Yes, and that's why they should just be. If you notice, their highest rated shows are usually Saturday or Sunday nights, which are when their stories are on. The Princess Diana story, the Queen Elizabeth story. That's their highest rated shows. And their weekend shows, Michael Smerconish, Fareed Zakaria, which Fareed obviously leans left, but he talks more about actual news, not just Republicans are evil. He doesn't just do that. He talks about actual news. And Smirkanish, when it comes to CNN, that guy is the most down the middle you're going to find on CNN. There's nobody more down the middle on CNN, so it's a relative place, than a guy named Michael Smirkanish. He's the only guy, by the way, who actually guest hosted a Fox show and a CNN show in the same week.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did I give you too much?
No. That's good. That's good. But I wanted to ask you about behind the scenes, because you were discussing like why you think they made the decision.
Yes.
Well, what NPR is saying is that CNN chief Chris Licht, if I'm saying that name right, informed Stelter yesterday of the decision that he's been making cuts throughout the network since taking the helm as part of this Warner Brothers Discovery takeover, which we knew was happening.
Yes.
And there were articles that came out before this is like last year, 2021, where John Malone, who's a Liberty media chair, this is a huge stakeholder in that company, and in Discovery, he actually, I think I'm trying to find it. So he said it would be cowardly to sell CNN, but that he wanted to see real journalism come back to it. I'm trying to find the exact quote. Yeah, I
think you're right. That's the goal, right? He bought it and he wanted it to actually make some money, right? Number one, he wanted real journalism. I get it. I agree with him. It'd be great if you could. But then how do you change the brand of CNN? If you go back to 1990, CNN was news. It was the source, right? Back to 1990. Now in 2020 and above, oh my God, it's not that at all. But what you can see again is the actual films they make, right? The documentaries that they make are actually films. I think you will see a bunch of that, and it will begin to shift into that because Discovery also needs content. And I can't see Discovery buying, CNN because they want news. I can't see that. I think the long-term piece is they want content, and CNN does have people who can write. It does have people who can make movies. It does have people across the world who can make interesting things that Discovery would like. I feel like that's the best bet. They absorb CNN into Discovery and they start creating great content. That's what I think is going to happen.
Do you think why do you think a guy in his position would say, I would like to see CNN evolve back to the kind of journalism that it started with and actually have journalists, which would be unique and refreshing? I mean, that's a pretty bad dig.
It is. And I deal with that myself. And this is the issue. And I'm going to give you credit, Allison, but also be realistic here. That's why I need people like you. We all need people like you. So I need people like you. I'll go further. All the other people on the internet, because if I go to what is now considered mainstream media, I don't actually get news. What I get is left or right. And then when they bring on guests, I've seen who you bring on, Allison. You will bring on someone who mainstream media would not bring on. You will do that, right?
That's but an understatement.
Yes, you will do that, but they won't. But here's how it is on everyone with this Fox, MSNBC. Hi, let me tell you why other guy is bad. Here are my two guests. Guy who agrees that with me, and guy who hates other people. Please tell me your reaction. Yeah, you're right, Larry. Yeah, other guy bad. Now our commercial. That's literally mainstream media, all the shows from like 8 to 11. So that's how it works. But now I've got to go to you. And the reason why he wants it is because he realizes there's no one place to go to get real news. So I can't get on those shows because I'm not a lefty or a righty. So I can't get on CNN. I can't get on Fox. I can't get on MSNBC. Now, if I yell Trump is evil all day, I can get on MSNBC or CNN. If I yell Trump's the awesomest thing in the world, I can get on Fox. But if I don't yell those things, I'm stuck. And I'm very happy people like you exist.
Well, thank you. Since you brought that up, somebody was saying CNN needs an anarchist. And, we were talking about the other day, my buddy Bill Doris and I have this weekly show we do for supporters over on ROKFIN, Locals, and Patreon, where he's former XTV too. And we're talking about the distrust that continues to grow, the Gallup polls that come out and say people don't trust the media. And they will talk about, okay, well, we're going to have different positions. Oh, or like for when the Hill, I don't know if you heard about the Hill, Kim Iverson leaves the Hill because she wasn't included in the Fauci.
I was on her show yesterday.
That was on your show?
I was on Kim's show yesterday.
You were?
Yes.
Well, next time you talk to her, tell her I'm trying to get a hold of her so she'll come on my show.
Okay.
Anyway, now We're all in the club, because I would love to hear, the background of all that. But for her, if the Hill is wanting to be sort of this edgier, we're willing to go there kind of content for the new digital audience, and Kim
They're
is just
not.
a little bit sort of outside that
Yeah, they're
safe
not.
space for them. And she's not, I mean, the Daily Beast wrote the stupid article about how like their favorite conspiracy theorist had left. Like she's a conspiracy theorist. But
Yes.
anyway, I won't go there right now. But I
I'm
just
a
think
libertarian. I know conspiracy theorists.
that
I know
that's
them.
true.
Yes.
But I think like you were bringing up, there's a safe dissent. There's a safe
Mm.
place you can dissent. And I think a lot of people are tricked into thinking that's real dissent. Like that's
Right.
really, and as I've gotten into this world of just like you said, I mean, I'll just talk to anybody just because I want to hear what's out there. I think it's better for me to know than to be ignorant of it.
100%.
Yeah, the people that now, like my friends who are only watching corporate news, or my friends who still work in it, what they think is a conspiracy theory or a dissenter, I'm like, dude, that's not even close. Like
Nowhere near.
that's not even close. So yeah, so I mean, what do you think do you think CNN would ever do something like have a libertarian, have an anarchist, have like a legit out there
Well,
communist? Like, do you think they would ever put a panel together like that?
let me do 2 plugs if I could. One, for those who
Okay.
want to see the Kim Iverson show, please. She did it yesterday. Came out yesterday. So please,
Go watch
wants to
it.
see, please
And
go
where
ahead,
does she
check
do
that
it on
out.
her YouTube channel?
Yep, on a YouTube channel now. Yes, she
Okay.
actually gets better ratings than Rising now.
Nice.
Yes, so she
There
gets
you
better
go.
ratings
That's
than
a
Rising.
win.
But anyway, please enjoy. But second, if CNN, if you're listening, I am available for your new show. So if you like to have a new show with a libertarian on it, I am available for your new show. But no, I don't think that CNN will go down that road. I think the Discovery people will have to slowly reboot everybody. My gut says they will begin to get rid of people and bring new people on over time. They will change their format. They will not have the nighttime shows that will be news shows like that. They'll do earlier, like 6 or 7. So they'll do news before prime time. Then prime time, they'll do things like shows and historical things like that. Like, remember History Channel used to actually have like history on it and stuff? Now it's just like Pawn Stars or whatever it is. I don't know. Anyway, but before that, that's what it was. I think they'll go that route and then late night do news again. How do I know that? If you look at late night CNN, it's much more straight news. If you get to CNN like after 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's late night. It's actually just straight news. So I think you will find them go to that route, but they'll be heavily about in-depth reporting, that kind of thing. I think they're going to go more that route. It's the only way they can do it. I don't see anything else.
Yeah, I don't think in today's era of censorship journalism or activist journalism, where they think that journalism is now silencing potentially dangerous voices versus trying to figure out how they think, like back in the day when Larry King would have folks like Fidel Castro on. I mean, and that was okay.
Yeah.
I don't think CNN's going to be the one who's going to be the groundbreaker on changing the way it is. I just don't see them as the leader.
But there are 2 parts to this, right? The first part is they're trying to make cash, which I get. I'm not mad at people trying to make cash. I try to make cash. We all try to make cash. Let's make some money. Everybody be rich. I love it. So that's the first part, right? So they're trying to make money. So their thought process was, wait a minute, Fox and MSNBC are making cash with this opinion stuff. Let's jump on board here. And everybody wants to be self-righteous. And I got a college degree, so I'm smarter than you. So let me show you how smart I am. A whole bunch of that, which is part 1, which obviously fails for them. But it's a second part, and that is us as consumers. We have the 2 issues I bring up all the time. The idea of platforming versus the idea of blood sports. What happens is if you bring on a communist, now you have people go, oh my God, Allison's a communist now, or she's communist adjacent, or she's this because she had a communist on. That has to stop. And the way that happens now, they want to cancel Allison as the communist. We can't talk to her anymore because she's a communist. She platforms communists, whatever the case may be, right? That's number 1. So the way you get around that is blood sport. You bring the communist on and you hammer him like there's no tomorrow. You scream and yell and you call them names and you try to get them. And then everyone goes, yay, Allison, she beat the communist up. Yay, she's awesome. But the reality of it is, what you're showing is that if you don't want the communist on, all you're doing is showing you're afraid the communist might be right. I'm not afraid the communist is right, so I'll have a communist on. I don't mind. And if for some reason the communist is right and I've been proven wrong in all my thoughts, well, then maybe I've been wrong and I'm happy to be right. That's not true, by the way. But let's assume that were to happen, then great, good. I always say that we want to make sure that we have to respect, and I bring about respect all the time. The idea of not wanting to put certain ideas on shows a lack of respect for your audience. That's what it actually does. It shows a lack of respect for your audience, and the audience members who get angry, they don't respect others. I should be able to hear the communist talk, the capitalist talk, the racist talk, the anti-racist talk, the whoever wants to talk. I should be able to hear all of them talk, and I should be able to say, oh, okay, I get it. Now, you might go, wait a minute, but what if more people believe in the communists or something? Well, then maybe we have to have better communication. I'm okay with that idea, but the problem is most people who don't respect their audience will fall down this road, and that's the biggest problem.
When you say don't respect, do you mean they don't give them they don't give them the respect that they can think for themselves, or that they should have the opportunity to hear? That definitely jives with my experience. I know that very much. Like I tell this story quite a bit. I have a buddy who's still in the mainstream TV world, and back when the vaccines were starting to roll out, and our TV company was partnering with the government to like go to these clinics and push this on you, and then sell the mandates and all that stuff. And it was a very weird time. I mean, it seemed to me so obviously a propaganda campaign the government was pushing, and the media was a willing accepting it willingly, and not being like drugged by the scruff of the neck. Like they wanted to be with the government, like saving everybody's lives. And when I told her, like, well, just be on your guard, that I really think this is one of the thickest propaganda campaigns in our generation, maybe going back to even 9/11. And so let's think about, just be wary that that's not just like organically happening, that there's stakeholders in like how you should think about this event. And so she said, well, I'm going to have to disagree with you on the propaganda thing, but I do understand why people are skeptical, because they just don't know. I mean, they don't know about these vaccines. They don't know about the history. They don't know. And it was very reflective of this idea that like, we know, but the public doesn't, and we have to keep them safe. And we understand why they're skeptical. That's why we just have to educate them better. And I said to her, that's the opposite. Actually, the most of the skeptics know better than you do. And that's the problem. And the media doesn't get that. They think that they know better, when in fact the real skepticism and distrust is coming from the fact that the public does know better. They know way better than a lot of the folks in corporate news about a lot of different topics. And so I agree with you. I do think, like you said, I mean, that is sort of an infantilization of the audience. Like, we just know you just don't know. So that's why we're here, to protect you.
And I see some of the comments are talking about, platforming is bad and that kind of thing. The example I'll give, the biggest one I think I can is, I think if you look at some of the people who are comedians, right? Some of the comedians who've been through, something. Mel Brooks, as an example. So those of you old enough know Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was back in the day, still popular, but back in the day, he made great movies, lots of things. Jewish comedian, literally served during World War II, when his family members were literally attacked and hurt by the Nazis, literally killed by the Nazis. He would joke about Hitler all the time. All the time. He would joke about Hitler all the time. Why? Because he wanted to take the power out of Hitler. Right? Now, I'm not saying we should joke about Hitler, but if anyone could, it's a Jewish comedian whose family was killed by the Nazis. All right, you give him a pass, clearly, right? So he wants to talk about Hitler. Let him do that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If you were to watch his movies and go, wow, that's a good idea. I mean, you were broken already. It wasn't like he made you do it, right? So you do want to platform people. You do want to show them how bad they are. And you want the people to believe it, right? Some guy just writes Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit was about Nazis and written by a Jewish actor, and the guy who played Hitler in that movie is Jewish. Literally. He is literally making a joke about Nazis, right? And he's Jewish. That is the piece I'm going to bring up. We should be able to platform anybody as long as we are showing them for what they actually are. Not powerful, not great, that this is silly.
And I guess I don't even know if I like the word platforming in the sense that it means like I'm endorsing. I mean, as a journalist, I'm trying to learn and give you the opportunity to do the same thing. the idea that I'm trying to push, and I mean, maybe that is what they're really doing, and that's why platforming has become the way to talk about it. But I just hate that idea that a journalist is giving credibility just because you're willing to talk to somebody. Just because, I mean, I'll talk to anybody because I believe it's better to be knowledgeable about what's out there than to be ignorant of it. That's just the
Correct.
bottom line. I don't understand how it benefits me or anybody else for there to be even the craziest ideas that I'm not aware of. Like, I like to sit down and hear, wow, dude, when I was in Florida, I remember seeing this car drove past us in the live truck. The guy said the world was going to end on like July 21st, 2011 or something. And I'm like, what? And I just said to the photographer, because at the time I actually had a photographer I was working with. Most of the time I work by myself. I'm like, step on the gas. Let's go flag that guy down. I wait, move over. He pulls off to 275. I get out and I'm like, do you really think the world is going to end on this exact date? And yes. Okay, do other people agree with you? Like, where is this? Because he had a website and everything. Oh, yeah, we're handing out pamphlets all over Tampa. I'm like, when are you going to be out again? So my boss is like, because back in the day, it was like, that was the person you wanted to try to understand. Why do you think the world's going to end on this day? So we went out and we asked him questions and we showed that these pamphlets, like these people are going to be out there, just so you know, the guy sold his whole business thinking that the world was going to end. He wanted to have his money so he could spend it in the last few days. The world didn't end. So what I did a follow-up story with him about what did he learn, as somebody who thought the world was going to end. It didn't. He said, I want to tell your viewers this. He looks straight in the camera. He's like, don't sell your business just because somebody tells you the world is going to end. Were our viewers better off knowing that there were, people who can, get into a group where they think that the world is going to end on this exact day and they sell their business? And you don't want to hear from a guy like that. I mean, I'm fascinated by people like that.
Absolutely. But if you did that today, YouTube would ban you, Facebook would shut you down, Twitter would cancel you. You'd be in trouble because that's misinformation and you get thrown off. So no one can learn anything, right? To the point that they're using the idea of platforming as simply a way of banning, shutting people down. And the worst part is, for me personally, right? Literally, I'm obviously a third party. So the left and right paradigm hurts me when people only think left or right, because Democrats think I'm a Republican, Republicans think I'm a Democrat, right? So that hurts me. But the people who aren't in the left-right paradigm, they have the actual answers. If you're in a left-right paradigm, all you do is say the other guy is bad, right? If you're in my state, New York State, this is a very blue state, deep blue, almost 3-1 Democrat to Republican. You want to win an election in New York State, in a statewide election, just go, I'm not a Republican. You win. That's the answer, right? That's their policies, right? And if you're a Republican, what do you do to get money? Democrats are evil. You don't have any answers. You're not going to win anyway. So you don't even have any answers. So now it becomes, I mean, you see Biden's last run. Biden's last run literally was, I'm not Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally his last one. And I think that the left-right paradigm, I was talking about CNN being so far this way, makes it to where people stop thinking, number one. And two, they're now voting against. So it's not that I'm pro-mask or anti-mask and bring any of that stuff up. But the point is, you shouldn't have decided any of that based upon some talking head on TV that you happen to agree with. You should have decided on your own what you thought was right for your family, for your health. Most Americans did not do that. They went, oh, do I watch Fox? I think this. Oh, I watch MSNBC? I think that. And it even affected our health. That is terrible. That is absolutely terrible. We have to make sure that we're thinking for ourselves. Third parties even in media is the way to make that happen.
Okay, I want to ask you in a second about how this duopoly or this Hegelian dialectic that we see in the media has affected election laws and headlines like this: for first time since 1946, New Yorkers have just two choices for governor, and basically say that under Cuomo it made it very difficult, near impossible for people like you to run. So the media's role in that, and then also let's talk about your run and what has been happening, everything. But first, since you are a libertarian, you said I can make money while you're
please go make money, please. Please.
We're all going to go to AllisonWinePromo.com and you can either be totally depressed that Brian Stelter, your favorite anchor and your favorite show, Reliable Sources, is done, and have a glass of wine because you're totally depressed and you don't know what you're going to watch now, or maybe you're celebrating that he's no longer there. this is for everybody. The mourners and the people who are celebrating, go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get 50% off my favorite Malbecs from Argentina, 50% off shipping. They're all high altitude Malbecs that come from very remote regions, very unique wines you cannot get at the grocery store, and all with unique histories. One from a very, very small operation where they handpick the grapes. One uses natural fermentation. One from almost 9,000 feet. I mean, come on. I ski at 9,000 feet, right? So get your wine and go support my work. Or you can
Hold
get
on.
some.
Go back real fast. Go back real fast. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
look, here's what I want to make sure also that the audience understands. If you love Allison and you want to support her, you can support her, but you can also support her and get wine.
Right.
So why wouldn't you do both? If you like wine, I know not everyone does, but if you're someone who likes wine, why wouldn't you get some wine and support Allison? This is not a bad deal, right? You're doing both. Two birds with one stone. You get to enjoy some wine.
I may have to save that clip for future advertisements. Okay, and then you can coffee. See if you're a teetotaler, you just want to drink coffee to try to understand what's going on in the world. And tea, actually, there's tea here too. High altitude as well. TwinEngineCoffee.com/Allison. These are all USDA certified organic. Light roast, dark roast, and like I said, there's also a Katura tea. I'm actually gonna. I don't know if you make kombucha. Do you know what kombucha is?
Not me.
Larry?
I'm sorry. I have just regular coffee. I'm a coffee addict. I have lots of coffee, but that's my thing. My thing's not wine. My thing. So I should be buying the coffee. I'm not buying the wine thing. I like coffee. So I'm going to be buying the coffee.
It's very good coffee. They've got all kinds of different varieties of roast. And it, like I said, it's organic, but also run by, well, first off, the guy that founded it, he was a cigar journalist. He lived in Cuba for a long time, wrote all about cigars for a long time, and then decided to start this coffee company. Very small operation, supports free speech, which I really like, and lives in Nicaragua, where it's all the whole operations is they harvest and grow, roast, do it all right there, and it's a cool company. They also do a lot for sea turtles, which is nice. But if you like tea. Kombucha, like I was saying, it's a fermented tea. So I'm going to start. I have my husband suggested this today. I'm going to start making my kombucha with Katura tea. Anyway, go to TwinEngineCoffee.com/Allison. There's plenty there for you, and you'll support my work while you're at it. Okay, so let's go back to that article from the New York Times. They're saying that, and you can explain it better, I'm sure, that for the first time in over 75 years, a state ballot appears destined to offer only two choices.
Now they say seem destined, and just so I can be clear on this.
Yeah, just
because I am still running. I was sued by the conservative and Republican parties, and they threw me off. I was on the ballot. They threw me off the ballot with a lawsuit. They won the lawsuit. I will be appealing. If I win my appeal, then I will be in the ballot. So they can't say we won't be. I might win my appeal. If I win my appeal, I will be on the ballot. If I don't win my appeal, then I will still be running a write-in campaign so that I can get ballot access. And this is what you're talking about, right? In New York State, you have to be able to have party status to get on the ballot. That's how you get on the ballot. That's why Republicans, Democrats get on all the time. They have party status. For literally decades in New York State, the only way to attain party status was, one, to get 15,000 signatures across the state. Not impossible, a tough task, so that people who are serious have to work for it, but it could be done. And once you did that, you were on the ballot. And then if you got 50,000 votes across the state, you attained party status, and you could just be on the ballot in every election. That's how it's been working for decades. Well, the Libertarian Party has been trying that for 50 years. We finally made it in 2018. I did that in 2018 when I ran then. We got party status. And literally the next year, New York State said, oh, yeah, we're just kidding. We're going to change all the rules. Changed all the rules, and now it's 3 times as much. You've got to get 45,000 signatures, not 15, still in 6 weeks, and they moved it earlier to where now in the springtime in New York State, we still have snowstorms. So they moved it to an area where there's still snowstorms, triple the amount of time, and then if you get it, you don't have to get 50,000, you must get 130,000 votes in the election. Wow. And they did all of this in an attempt to get rid of third parties, and it worked. In fact, getting on the ballot now is so impossible that literally a multimillionaire worth tens of millions of dollars could not do it. A sitting congressman could not do it. In fact, he allegedly put in 13,000 fraudulent signatures, photocopies, in an attempt to do it. That is how bad it was. This system encourages fraud because nobody can do it. So my argument isn't it's virtually impossible. My argument is it is impossible. that we've shown that no one could do it. So
Hmm.
that's how bad it is. And what's wound up happening is now you only have two options. And if you can't do it now, no one will do it. There will literally be no independent governor candidates, no independent, statewide candidates across New York State for a generation. And that's a terrible thing.
So tell me where your run stands right now.
Right now, I am polling at about 6%. Depends upon which poll. We did Emerson poll, Zogby poll. One poll I polled as high as 7. Others I polled as low as 4. Some at 6. The most recent poll I was at, I think, almost 6, 5.8. So I'm polling in the area of 6% right now, which is amazing for a third party, a libertarian. It's great. So with 6 million votes, if 6 million people vote, that's about 300,000 votes. So about 300,000 people who right now it looks like will vote for me currently. I hope more, obviously. I'm doing a write-in vote right now. We'll be using stamps to get people to stamp in, which would be cool. So we'll be doing a write-in vote right now. If we win our appeal, we'll be on the ballot, and then hopefully in the debates in October.
Do you think that New Yorkers are more interested in a libertarian candidate after the last couple of years?
100%. The reality of it is, this goes back to our two-party system. People think I have no chance of victory. They are wrong. The Republican has no chance of victory. Why? Because we have a left-right paradigm. Democrats, if you're right now a Democrat and a hardcore Democrat, think about what it would take for you to vote for a Republican. If you're watching and you're a Republican, a hardcore Republican, think about what it would take for you to vote Democrat. Yes, that's my state. So the millions of Democrats are not going to vote for the Republican no matter what. They're not going to vote for him. They're going to vote Democrat or they're going to vote third party. How do I know that? I have the data. I ran already. We do polling. About 25% of the people who support me are registered Democrats. So the Republican is capped. He's only going to get about 35% of the vote. That's as far as he can go. He's never going to get more than that. He's done at that point. He's going to lose by at least 15, if not 20 points. But I could actually push past him because the state will go gold before it will go red, because libertarians will still allow people to be themselves. With a left-right paradigm, the left imposes its will or the right imposes its will. I would like no one to impose their will. So I think that's the only way we're going to actually make it to where the state will change. Otherwise, it's actually a one-party democracy right now in New York State. California is very similar, but not as bad as us. They will soon be as bad as us.
Since we're talking about Cuomo here anyway, that this happened under him, I don't know what kind of role he had in all of it. They just
major role. He was, to be clear, Cynthia Nixon, the actor from Sex and the City, actually was running the same year I was running. And she was trying to run the Democratic primary. She's a Democrat. She wanted to run the Democratic primary. So she ran, but she couldn't because Cuomo fixed the system in the convention to where she couldn't get even 5% of the vote. He made sure all the delegates who went there voted for him, which is what he did very well. That's how the Democrats made their stuff work. Republicans do the same thing, but it happened in 2018. When that happened, she literally couldn't get on the ballot. So she had to then get 15,000 signatures so she could be on the ballot in the Democratic primary. She then lost the Democratic primary and was backed by the Working Families Party. That party was going to keep her the entire time and run an actual independent candidate, run Cynthia Nixon. And they threatened. Finally, Cuomo said he did some back and forth dealing. The Working Families Party got rid of Cynthia Nixon and put him on the ballot. In New York State, we have what's called fusion voting. This is very unique, right? This is really only done in New York State. A couple other states can do it, but they really don't. I think 6 states can do it. We do it, though, all the time. It means in New York State, you can run on one ballot and be listed multiple times with different parties. So you'd be listed as a Democrat, Working Family, Socialist. You'd be listed to all 3 of them. And then all of the votes combined are your total. That's how it works in New York State. So Cuomo wanted to be on that one and the Working Families. This way, everybody would vote for him. That's how it works right now. Once that happened, he got scared. He goes, I don't like this Working Families thing. So he made the new rules to get rid of them. Sadly, in his attempt to get rid of them, he got rid of everybody else except them. Yes, that's what actually happened. So the Working Families Party still exists in New York State, but it's just a puppet party of the Democratic Party in New York State. Outside of New York State, the Working Families Party does do some decent work in its own. But in New York State, it basically just copies the Democratic Party. In New York State, the Conservative Party is exactly the same. It just follows Republicans. The Conservative Party just, whatever Republicans do, they just copy them. They're useless puppet parasite parties that have no real value. So that's why when I say the conservatives and Republicans sued me, the Conservative Party leader, a guy by the name of Jerry Cassara, is the guy who actually decided to get rid of me. He's the one who actually initiated all this stuff. They got rid of me because they wanted to make sure that I didn't come in second. Their worry was an actual independent candidate might actually come in second, and the Republicans couldn't handle that. And the reason why, this again is left-right paradigm. In New York State, and most who don't know these types of rules, the Board of Elections is run by the top two parties. It doesn't say Republican and Democrat. It says top two parties, which are always Republicans and Democrats. But if I come in second, then all of a sudden it's run by Democrats, Libertarians. Now, the reality of it is there's not enough Libertarians in my state to run the Board of Elections. We don't have enough of us. So they would just rewrite the rules. But if they rewrite the rules, they will include third parties, which means I will have a multi-party democracy in my state, and I'll be able to create a coalition against the establishment, which right now it is impossible. One of the reasons why I'm running is to make sure we can create a coalition against the establishment. Without me, we cannot. To your earlier point, the Republican Party in my state is controlled opposition. They are not really, they don't really oppose anything. They don't really do anything. They have no real, I would say in my state, the Democrats are the party of bad ideas. The Republicans are the party of no ideas. All they do is just say we're against the Democrats and then vote along with them anyway.
Okay. What do you think about when we were discussing the media's role in this? I'm trying to find this tweet. I'll bring it up while you're talking about the sort of mentality. We talked about journalism and activism and the idea that it's like, no, we're here to help and we got to keep the public safe, and how that then translates into influencing politics. And we're live on YouTube, so I'm being careful about what I'm saying related to elections. But how does the media play a role in if there is this sort of safe space in which to debate? How does the media then affect the safe way to have elections roll out, or have parties control the conversations or the election rules, that kind of thing? I mean, I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I'll touch both of those. I'll touch the debates and then just the conversation. The conversation piece first. The media likes a left-right paradigm, good versus evil. It's a very easy story. It sells. It's great. You don't have to dig in deep. You don't have to have answers. You can just go, so do you support evil guy number one or not? Oh, great. Let me now tell you how bad you are. So it's much easier, and it sells and people watch it. It's drama. It's wrestling, right? People like it and they do it. Now, the other issue, though, becomes debates. What people think is that debates are about, getting the word out or support. No, debates are about ad revenue. And that's it. Ad revenue. If there's good ad revenue, then they'll want to do it. The people who get in debates are people who are popular. That's what matters, right? That's how it actually works. We had debates in 2018. The League of Women Voters actually, held the debates. I was in them. I won all those debates handily. If you don't think so, you can watch them yourself. You went to their online. I won them handily. And it didn't matter because the press didn't cover them. Why? Because our governor at the time, Cuomo, never bothered showing up. And if he didn't show up, they saw no value in it. No one's going to watch it. They didn't bother showing it. If they would have thought that people would have watched it, they would have shown it. It's all about ad revenue. Here's my example. If Kanye West had actually run a real presidential campaign last time, he did not. But if he had, he would have been in debates. Guaranteed he would have been in debates. Why? Because you and I would have both watched that debate with Kanye West. Yes, we would have. And people would have watched that debate like there's no tomorrow. You would have watched this. Of course, Allison, you'd watch that debate. Of course 100%. You would. So yes, so they know that. So he would have been in debates without question. So the media doesn't care about whether or not people are paying attention to the issues. They care if eyeballs are on the screens. So they will give you drama to the best of your ability, which is a left-right paradigm. They don't want to platform the bad guys because then they might get dragged on social media. So they stick to the script, give you left-right paradigm, and that's what hurts third parties, and that's what hurts real debate. That's why the real debate is almost always online in shows like this.
But okay, the way I see it is that there are limitations to that whole ratings and money, because I think social control and power are more influential for people than even money. And so like the Epstein narrative was one they didn't really want to touch, even though that probably would have gotten a lot of ratings. And like you said, I mean, Kanye, a lot of people would have watched that, but where was it? So I don't know if ratings are always a driving factor. I feel like in a lot of ways,
I didn't say ratings. I said ad revenue.
Ad revenue.
And here's the next piece.
Okay, because the sponsors will pull out of the deal.
Correct. Ad revenue,
okay.
right? Ad revenue is the key. It's not necessarily eyeballs. I should have been clearer. It is about ad revenue. And the other issue is you'll notice there are some people. I'll give you an example. This was a while ago. The Sunday morning shows used to be sponsored by a company, Kerr McGee. Most who don't know what Kerr McGee does. Kerr McGee literally builds offshore platforms, all oil platforms, right? Why in the world would they be sponsoring some CNN show? You're not gonna be watching it. Oh, you know what I need? An oil rig. I need one of those. Let me go online and buy one, right? That's not gonna happen. So why would they do that? They would do it to ensure that you wouldn't say things they don't like because they control your ad revenue. So ad revenue was a key piece to this, right? So they keep buying ads that are useless, right? Because no one is going online to buy an oil rig, right? And that's just one example. There are many of them, right? To do that so that, they're doing it to control the narrative. So you will see that very often. They control the narrative. That's what I meant by ad revenue, right? But something else, Democrats, Republicans literally spend billions of dollars on ad revenue. Piss them off and they'll stop. One of the reasons why they put so many ads on these is to make sure they control the narrative. That's one of the reasons.
So there's this clip going around right now of Sam Harris. I don't know if you know him. He has a podcast. And he's, I'm not going to play it because there's some stuff he says in it I think would violate the community guidelines of the election stuff on YouTube. But the conversation is basically about him saying that if you remember that Time magazine article that came out where it was like this cabal of powerful elites like work together to make sure that Trump didn't win, essentially. And they were proud of it. They were like bragging about it. And a lot of people were like, why would they just come out and say this? And Dave Smith, the comic, also libertarian, right? He shared this clip.
I know Dave well. We've been on shows together before. Absolutely.
Okay. So he's like, I appreciate that Sam actually just said this out loud, what a lot of anti-Trump people won't say. But so he tries to explain himself here. There's a podcast clip circulating that seems to be confusing many people about my views on Trump. So for what it's worth, here's what I was trying to say. I was essentially arguing for a principle of self-defense, where there's a continuum of proportionate force that is appropriate and necessary to use. I've always viewed Trump as a very dangerous person to elect as president of a fake university, let alone the U.S. And when he became a sitting president who would not commit to a peaceful transfer of power, I viewed him as more dangerous, though I've never been under any illusion he is Orange Hitler. On the podcast, I was speaking narrowly about the wisdom and propriety of ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop story until after the election. I've always thought that this was a very hard call ethically and journalistically. And then, okay, I'm not going to read his last one about the election, but suffice to say, he does basically say like that there was this unique threat. And we had to act uniquely because there was a unique threat. And that, if you're really believing the evil story, then you've got to consider that maybe we shouldn't have like dug into Biden's, dark history because we really needed to stop this threat. And like, there was one quote where he's like, Biden could have had kids' corpses or something in his closet. And, I wouldn't have cared because nothing was going to compare to the dangers that Trump presented. So when you have this idea that, you have to just have to stop the threat, where does the third party threat to democracy come in? Because there were a lot of people who said, like, if you vote green, for instance, you're voting for Trump, or if you vote third party, you're going to just, you're blowing things up. And they use that danger and security. We've talked about this multiple times already in the last hour, like when it comes to journalism and politics. But I'm curious how you see that idea that, like, and how has that affected the Libertarian Party or your ability to run? That listen, we just have these grave dangers. We have unique dangers, and like, you're making it harder for us to stop those dangers. So we have to have these election laws. We have to figure out a new way of doing things. We can't have Larry Sharpe coming in here and taking even 7% of the vote, because it's just going to set us up for this real serious problem.
So that you put a lot of stuff in that one. That was a long one. Let me grab a couple pieces. The first one is something for everyone who's watching right now. Keep this in mind. Bush got us Obama. Obama got us Trump. Trump got us Biden. Who's winning? Who's winning? Right? Exactly. So all the stories about this is the most important election of all time. For 20 years, each one got the opposite. So I won because I like Trump, or I won because I like Obama, whatever the case may be. Yeah, for 4 or 8 years. Then, right, if you don't like Biden, you're getting a Trump or a Palin or whatever coming up here. And if you don't like Trump, you're getting an AOC or a Ilhan Omar, or you're getting something that coming up here. That's going to happen. So how are you winning? You're not. If we don't change the system and stop this left-right paradigm, you're not winning, number one. So your argument is clearly false. But not just that. In the past 20 years, I'll go back 30 even, both parties have run the entire country, right? Both parties have had a time when they owned the judicial branch, the presidential branch, legislature, of course. And did things all of a sudden get better? Did things permanently change? No, we're still in a terrible spot. I would argue we're still in the worst spot. The things that keep happening: more government, more spending, more wars, more executive power, and now a legislative branch that doesn't do its job at all. It has surrendered completely. People are mad at the Supreme Court for making so many rules. The Congress won't do anything. It won't pass any laws. It won't check anybody. So of course it has to. Everything has to become, since the Congress won't do its job, the president does it instead. And then all that happens is the court checks the president. Why do you think so many people leave Congress after a while? They make their money, they become billionaires, and they leave. They can't do anything anyway. They can't make any change, and then they leave. This is number one. So the idea that, well, if you don't let a third party in, the world will end. The world's ending now. This idea of this terrible world, if libertarians get in charge, is happening right now. Well, you libertarians do everything. We haven't been in charge. You Green Party, Greens haven't been in charge. Third parties haven't been in charge since the 1860s. So I don't know what you're talking about. It hasn't happened. The Republican Party was a third party at one point, right? When the Republican Party was a third party, they got in charge. Besides that, we haven't been in charge. So how can you say it's our fault? That's number one. Number two, if you say that, it means you're afraid of my ideas. Here's the reality. Do I believe that New York State, even the country, is going to become 51% libertarian? I don't believe that. And maybe in 100 years, who knows? But not now. But it doesn't have to be. All it has to be is strong enough to run a check on the other parties. The Democratic Party is supposed to be about civil liberties. It isn't. But if there was a strong libertarian party, it would have to be, or those people would vote libertarian instead of Democrat. The Republican Party is supposed to be about lower taxes, Second Amendment, caring about small business. It isn't. But libertarians are. And if there was a strong libertarian party, it would have to be. That we, the third party, we are the actual people who are the referees who begin to shift and make everybody come towards us, towards the right place, which is the idea of what America is supposed to be about. It isn't, but it's supposed to be about idea of life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. Now it's about control, and more control. And you might think, well, my party's better. No, it isn't. If you're Republican, your party isn't better. If you're Democrat, your party isn't better. No, they both control you, just different things. You may prefer their control over the other control, which, by the way, in 4 years, you're going to lose because the other party is going to take over and change everything the last party did. So you get to have your better control for 4 or 8 years, and it goes back again. That's my argument to all of that.
Okay. Can I throw a couple questions before you go for my locals community?
100%.
Your direction? Okay. So, if you aren't over at alismar.locals.com, go over there, because this is one of the benefits of being on my editorial board. You can throw questions ahead of time for interviews at people like Larry and go direct with him instead of having like a news anchor ask the questions. And this is your chance. No top-down model. It's the free model.
Bottom up. There we go.
There we go. So, okay, New York is so corrupt. Does he actually think he has a chance? My father grew up in Albany way back in the 30s and remembers Democrat precinct wardens going door to door handing out $5 to vote for their candidate. So the corruption goes back a long way.
Yes, here's the answer. Can I win? Yes. The odds are grossly slim. I get that. I'm not fooling myself thinking that, I've got a 20% chance of victory. It's a low chance of victory, but could it happen? Yes. The example I will give you is Jesse Ventura in Minnesota 30 years ago. It does happen every once in a while. If I can get in debates, have a great debate performance, I have a chance. It's a three-way race. If I get 35% of the vote, I win. But to be forward, those odds are not high. I get that. But if I come in second, I still win. Coming in second means, as I said earlier, we will have to change all of the laws within New York State to make New York State a actual multi-party democracy, not a one-party rule. It will be a multi-party democracy where we can actually make change in New York State. And you might go, I don't live in New York State. I don't care. You need to care, because New York State's the real battleground. All the bad stuff that happens in our country begins in my state. If we get away with it, it comes to your state. So I'm holding on and fighting in the front line. So even coming in second is still valuable. But even if I come in a tight third, there's still a win anyway, because then people will pay attention. I'm the one talking about raising money without taxation. I'm the one who's talking about actual answers to break up monopoly to create communities. I'm the one talking about supporting local communities. No one else is. I'm talking about reform. I'm the one talking about having it, maybe even an Article 5 convention. I'm the one talking about the idea of ranked choice voting. I'm the one talking about the idea of easier ballot access. I'm talking about term limits. I'm the only one talking about these things. And if I actually am able to get more people to hear me, some people will take up these actual ideas of real change. The Democrats, Republicans are not going to give you any real change. So while the odds of my total victory are slim, I have many levels of victory. That's when I was on Joe Rogan. For those who don't know, I did a Joe Rogan interview in 2018. If you want to watch it, feel free. But at the end of that interview, Joe Rogan was like, "Oh my God, Larry, you got great ideas, great policies. How'd you make them?" I said, "Me and my team, we come up with them." He said, "Great, you better lock them down." I said, "Why?" He said, "People will take them." I said, "Take them. I don't have to run. Fix my state. I'll stay home. I got a family and friends in the business. Fix the state. I'll stay home." So that's what I'm talking about. And that's how we can still win.
Well, if you really believe in your ideas, you would want copycatters, right?
Yes.
I mean,
100%.
okay. I'm trying to shorten this one a little bit. As a registered libertarian, I have observed in the policy statements of the libertarians I have supported a lack of character, almost a laissez-faire attitude. I am not speaking of their lack of values, nor of their personal moral failures. What I have observed is their avoidance of standing up for what is right and lack of decrying what is wrong. I support their call to stay out of foreign wars, and I changed to registered libertarian in part because of Ron Paul's "do whatever you want, just don't hurt me or steal my property." Yet from my readings, our country's founders were strong about religious freedom being various Protestant religions' observances, not Hindu, Buddhism, Islam, whatever. They found our country on the belief in the God of Jesus Christ. Is the avoidance of standing up for right and decrying wrong what I see a deficiency on the part of those candidates, or am I just aligned with the wrong party? So kind of a lot there, but maybe
it's a lot, but I get where he's going from. A lot of people believe that because you're a libertarian, that you can't be principled, or you can't be religious, or you can't be, insert thing here. It's not true. The reality of it is you can be all those things. You just can't force people. What's the difference? You might say, "Well, Larry, I'm very conservative and I think the world should be more conservative." Awesome. Do you think it's the government's job to enforce that? If you do think it is, you're a Republican. If you think it's not the government's job, it's my job through my works, through my example, through my community to make the world more conservative. You're libertarian. The reverse is true also. You're very liberal. I think the world should be more liberal. Is it the government's job to make us all liberal? You're a Democrat. No, it's not. It's my job. You should look at me and say I should be more liberal, or my community, or my example. You're libertarian. So many times in policy, they don't support what you're saying, but many individuals do. So my answer to you would be, you are in the right party, but there are only certain candidates you should be looking at. The candidates that lean more towards your way are the ones you should be looking at. And so I hope I'm one of them, but that's the actual answer. Look at the candidates. There are many that are very good, that are on your side, and they will change the environment to make things right.
Okay, I am concerned this could become a model for all states to remove third parties from their ballots. Do you think they see that third parties are actually a viable threat to their reign on power? Why else would they keep moving the goalposts? As someone who is mostly politically homeless, I see this as a way to stifle my voice from choosing someone besides the uniparty.
Andrea is completely correct. She's absolutely right. And the problem is, right now, as I mentioned earlier, without a third party, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is protect you from the other. That's it. All I do is I'll make sure that the Republicans won't take away your rights, or I'll make sure that the Democrats won't take away your rights. That's all I do. Did you make my life better? No. And right now with the blood sport, the win for the individual is not them actually winning. It's the other side losing. So if I beat up the Trump supporters or own the libs, I won. My question is your life any better? No. So you didn't really win. So yes, she is 100% correct. This is a thing happening throughout. There's a couple of states now that have what's called, you check one box, straight line voting. You just check a box and you vote for all the Republicans or all the Democrats. Oh my God, that's terrible. They're literally encouraging you to not think, to just get on your side, press the button, and go home. And so, yes, it is a whole lot easier to control you, to stop you from thinking if there aren't many parties. In reality, there should be lots of parties. Some of them, and this is why it matters so much. In New York State years ago, we had a party called the Rent is Too Damn High Party. And you might laugh at that party, but what does it mean? If people are voting in that party, that means people think the rent's too high. That guy was never going to win, but the amount of votes that he gets tells the elected officials what the body cares, what the body politic cares about. If he gets a whole bunch of them, then they care about the rent. If he doesn't, they don't really care about the rent. And so these minor parties are able to show, because the average politician doesn't actually care what you think at all. They know that they have no power. They know you have no power. They know most places gerrymandered. They know as soon as their party, ignites them, they're going to be the nominee and they're going to win. They know that because it's already set up that way. But what they do care about is your vote. They don't want to lose their power. And if you all of a sudden start saying, wait, 10% of my people voted for the parks are too dirty party or whatever the party is, I better fix those parks or I'm in trouble. That's what my community cares about. And I'm not here to judge you and whatever you think is important. Maybe you think the rent's important or the parks are important, but that's how they know. You can go protest all you want. Absolutely no value. But you vote against them and vote for that party, they will pay attention.
Okay, that makes sense. Is he familiar with the housing first approach to addressing homelessness in places like California? How does his carrying caboose differ? Has something similar been tried elsewhere and was it successful?
Yeah, without question, we want to make sure that we deal with our homeless problem in New York State specifically, but all over. Yes, I want to get people in houses. However, there's a huge caveat to this. The homeless community is not a monolith. The homeless community is full of many types of people. People with addiction problems, people with mental problems, working poor, mothers, veterans. It's not a monolith. That's piece one. Piece number two, I want to make it to where people go to privately run charitable housing. Why does that matter? When it's a government-run housing, our current government-run housing is a disaster. Why? There's paperwork and things required. Why does that matter? If you have an addiction problem or you have mental illness, you cannot get through the hoops. Therefore, you don't go to the shelters and the housing, and you wind up in the MTA subways, buses, and in people's homes. So that has to end. The reason why it has to be that way is because of government bureaucracy. If you have privatized housing that takes different chunks, different populations, like one just for working mothers, one just for people with addiction problems, one just for people who are suffering from schizophrenia. You do that, and that model is working right now in the Bronx, a place called Jericho Project. They do veterans. So that is working right now. You do that, and that will change everything. Because what we also don't have in most cities is we don't change our building codes. Why does that matter? If someone's been living out on the streets for a long enough time, they actually don't feel comfortable and don't actually want to go into a large home or apartment. They want to go into a studio. They're accustomed to it. Their mindset is. So you first put them in tiny houses first to get them back into the idea of being with the people, and then they begin to shift into other homes. Our current system does not do that. We just spend lots of money, put them in hotels, and it doesn't work. This is how we want this to begin to work. The carrying caboose idea is in combination, because when we start the new program, people will not rush to it because they'll be afraid of it. They're not early adopters. That's how it works. So they're going to go to where things are warm and where people are, which is the MTA. Right now in New York City, the cops either arrest them, put them in jail, bad answer, or two, which by the way, they send them to the most violent prison in America, which is Rikers Island, or they leave them there. And right now in New York City, they are literally killing people, throwing them onto the tracks, stabbing them, attacking them with feces, destroying everything. So my plan is put them into the carrying caboose. Every other train, the last car is literally a car that's for them, people who are in trouble. It is privately taken care of. What does that mean? It's sponsored by like a company that's in trouble that wants to revamp its image, right? Or a company that's a pharmaceutical company is sponsored by them with private security. It can't have cops in it. And it's not that I'm anti-cop at all. My father was in law enforcement. It's that homeless people are afraid of cops. So are addicts. So they won't go if cops are there. So you have private security with actual helpers, and they all go there. That begins to get them together. They understand things, and those people will tell them, hey, there's a special house for you. If you go to 44th and 5th, there's a house right there for you. You can't go because you fall into this population, not a monolith. And they can now support the new system. You put those two together over the course of less than 6 months, maybe a year, but probably under 6 months, you will see massive change in homelessness in New York City.
Okay, final question. How many times are you going to run?
It is a great question, and I honestly don't know. I don't know. The issue, one of the reasons why that they threw me off the ballot was because New York State is now going to start spending money and paying for elections. So we're going to take $100 million of taxpayer dollars and give it to Democrat and Republican grifter class consultants and such, so that they can take that money and put it into, I don't know, CNN, I guess, whatever. I don't know, whatever they're going to put it into, and do that. So they don't want me on the ballot. But in the future, I think we'll probably I may try to run again. I don't know. It's very hard, right? For people who don't understand this, when I run, I'm serious when I run. I don't work. I take a year off. I take a year off from my work. And to be forward, I live in New York City. I have a wife and 2 kids. My wife doesn't work. So you can imagine what my bills are. When I ran last time, I was 6 figures in debt at the end of the campaign. Not because I was using much of my own money. I dropped over 5 figures of my own money into the campaign. But also my bills were being paid by debt because I wasn't working. I'm not working now. I take this seriously. And then remember, in 2018, this is the kind of system we have. 5 people were running. I was the only one not getting a government check. Everybody else is being paid to run. Your taxpayers were paying them to run. I was on my own. This year, exactly the same thing. 2 people are running. They're both government employees. One's the current governor. One's a congressman. Your taxpayer dollars are paying them to run. Me, I got to use my own money. So it is a big challenge for me personally, my family, my friends, my business, for me to run. So that's why I can't tell you if I'll run again. It depends upon what's happening in my life, what's happening, in my business. We'll see.
Okay, can I ask you just really fast 2 last sort of clarifying questions?
Why fast? Are you in a rush?
Well, I don't know if you got dinner or what you got. I know it's later there where you are.
I'm here for you, Allison. I'm trying to support the media. I talk the talk. I got to walk the walk, right? I got to support non-CNN Fox News media. So I'm doing it.
That's true. Well, that's true. But that's not necessarily like the expensive dinner time where you got to go to the bathroom or something. So two challenges to libertarianism that I'm looking at some of the comments on ROKFIN.
Please.
Number one, it's still a party. Libertarian is still a party. So it's still plugged into the party system of like parties dictating choice. So could you respond to that? And then number 100%. 2, libertarians want corporations to have more money at the expense of things like the environment. Mm-hmm. And that's not working out well. We have to have
both of those
government overseers.
Let me first deal with the last you just said, which is libertarians want corporations to have more money. Utterly false, made up. That is completely fabricated. How will corporations get more money? They're getting more money now. They don't care about the environment now. Again, this horrible, dystopian future is today. Democrats and Republicans are corporatists and want companies to have lots of money and don't care about the environment. How do I know that? It's happening now. You and I were talking about the chemicals in things and the non-organic stuff. That's happening today. What libertarians are in charge? They aren't. So that's made up. Second, when that same piece, literally in my plan, I have what's called an EBU in our environmental department here, DEP in New York State. It will be the EPA federally, but New York State is called the DEP. And I was called the EVU. It's the Environmental Victims Unit. What does that mean? That means if there is an environmental problem, there is a unit within the DEP that will put together an actual case that will break the corporate veil and get the individuals who make the bad decisions and punish them by giving that case directly to the AG. AGs do not know how to actually punish these people. They have no idea. So they do lawsuits and get money. That's all they do. No, I want to punish the individuals. Why? That's libertarian. Individual responsibility. Here's how it works right now, today. These people talk about libertarians. Today, me and you, Allison, and Andrea, we're in a boardroom. And you come up with a great plan. You go, hey, I got a great plan. We'll make like $80 million. And I go, okay, what's the downside? Well, Andrea's a lawyer. She goes, don't worry about it. Worst case scenario, we'll have to pay like $10 million into the super fund. The EPA, by the way, is super fund. Super fund's out of money. That's why there's so many places that aren't fixed, because the EPA saves corporations, caps how much they have to pay, and then the super fund has to kick in, but it's out of money. That's why nothing actually happens, right? Mm-hmm. That's why it doesn't happen. I'm sorry, it's the DEC, not the DEP. Sorry, DEP is New York City. New York State is DEC. I apologize. Department of Environmental Conservation is DEC. Anyway, so that's what happens now. I'm saying if that happens, you go, great. So we only lose maybe 10 million. We'll still make 70. Done. And you and I go, okay. And then we go to lunch and people die and we don't care. But change it. What if all of a sudden you have this plan and I go, great. Hey, Andrea, our lawyer, what do you think? She says, well, maybe we'll pay $10 million. But if we get caught, the New York State's EBU is going to come directly after Allison and you, Larry, for making the decision. What? Yeah, they're going to come directly after you for making the decision. Whoa. Okay, maybe we should do this. It will change how things work. And that is 100% libertarian. And that idea has been on my website for 5 years, yet no Republican or Democrat has brought this up. This is about individual responsibility. So that whole entire idea is incorrect. That's made up. Right now, remember, the Republican Party started the EPA. The Democrat Party is doing climate change. They're together. This is not us at all. We are about individual responsibility. Now, the Libertarian Party, that person's correct. The Libertarian Party is not the Liberty Movement. The Liberty Movement is much bigger than the party. The party is just one arm of Liberty Movement. The Liberty Movement can survive without the party. However, the party is an important part of the movement. I focus on what I'm good at. I focus on the party. But the movement's far bigger. The movement does all types of things. There's a free state project. There's people out in the West doing things. There's people trying to stop this and stop that. They're all very valuable and important. Most of them are activists. Some aren't. But the Libertarian Party is just one arm of the Liberty Movement. I focus on that one because that's what I'm good at. That's what I enjoy. I stay there. But I have mad respect for the entire movement, which includes others. Did I answer those 2 questions? Was that clear or no?
Yes. No, I get it. Do you think the Declaration of Independence traded the right to property for the pursuit of happiness, and it was the founding fathers that sold out to the British? That was a question comment on ROKFIN.
I think the premise of the question is incorrect. I think pursuit of happiness is far better than pursuit of property. Far better. And the reason is happiness is broader and more important. Some people don't want to have property, and that's fine. I don't think you have to have property. You should have whatever makes you happy. If property makes you happy, grab lots of property. If it doesn't, don't. I shouldn't be deciding that. Happiness is what you think happiness is today, tomorrow, next week. What makes you happy now, Allison, may not make you happy in 10 years. So happiness is better. It's the right answer. I think it was a sellout at all. I think it was very, very valuable, a smart move, no sellout.
I think the question was, or not really, it was more posed as a comment. I threw it to you as a question if you agreed or disagreed. But the idea that there's no such thing really as private property in the United States. Would you agree or disagree with that?
There's no such thing as that's too black and white. I get the point. The point is that everything is taxed. The government can take everything. I get that. It's a very libertarian idea. And I think there's some truth to that. But that's a point. But why am I even fighting that argument? It doesn't matter, right? We're not going to change that tomorrow. Let me make the world a little bit better right now.
Okay. Is there anything else, Larry, that we haven't discussed that you'd like to get off your chest before you go? It could be about anything.
It is all about, and this is the most important piece. It is all about communicating. It's why I go on so many different places. Why I talk to so many different people, left and right in the middle. I don't want us to fight each other. I want us to respect each other. It's an important piece. On my show, I talk about it. Mutual respect, human respect. Respect is the critical piece, right? If we start talking again, we can fix stuff. If we don't talk, we can't fix. Once we stop talking, there will be violence. I don't want violence. I want talk. So please, if you want to support me and what I'm doing, head over to LarrySharpe.com. Check out what I'm doing. Check out my YouTube page. Check out my Twitter account. Check out my TikTok. Larry Sharpe is everything Sharpe with an E, and the E stands for entertaining. That's very important. So spend
I'm
time
going to have
doing
you
that.
co-host come back and just host for me when I have my baby next month. And just maybe
there we go. I love it.
Simulcast.
100%. Let's do that. It's an important piece to spend time trying to talk to people. If you want to help me, please help out. I've got lawsuits. I've got travel, tons of things. You want to throw me some cash? I'd love that. If not, volunteer or just watch my stuff, like and subscribe and all those cool things. Every little bit does count. And by the way, I was also on Glenn Beck. I was on Kim Iverson. I was on Joe Rogan. Please watch all of those shows.
Where on this tab would you go to get your podcast, your show?
You go to the YouTube page.
Oh, okay. So don't go to LarrySharpe.com for that.
You
go
can.
to your YouTube channel.
But to get a YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and type in Larry Sharpe.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we go to the right place. No, I really appreciate it, Larry. It's I don't know. I find that there's as I've tried to understand it, there's some kind of, is it a personality or it's a spiritual thing or what? But we seem to be kind of divided along the line of it would be a safer world with less information. And again, going back to kind of the platforming, endorsing idea, or the people who are like, I'd rather take the risk of the information to avoid the cost of centralized control over what we're allowed to know. I see that as the graver danger. Where do you fall on that spectrum? And
well,
I haven't found that like arguing among those two types with like facts necessarily changes people's minds. So I guess maybe my last question for you is, if you're sitting with like grandma and she's like, but you just can't, you just can't keep talking to people. You have to draw the line. You have to draw the line because evil or danger, or whatever the word is. How do you tell grandma, no, I think it's more dangerous to have a line, or do you have a line? I mean, maybe you do, and I'm misunderstanding you, but because I really do think at the end of the day, what I try to do on my podcast is to just preserve those lines of communication, and just in the act of talking to different people, show people that it's okay. Like, you're not going to combust into dust in thin air if you talk to somebody who's got ideas that your parents or your favorite newscaster or your politician or whatever has told you that's abhorrent. That there's a value even understanding the most evil person, or evil idea. Like, I don't know. I guess because if I think I'm going to draw the line here, then like, where am I going to draw the line tomorrow and the next day, and who's going to decide? And so I kind of am a wild Westerner when it comes to that. But how do you evangelize that idea? I guess
you threw a lot at me again. All right, let me try to get through some of these.
I'm sorry, my brain just goes in a million.
I love it. It's all good. The first thing is when it comes to centralized control, I'm going to give you a list. If I could, I won't go that long. A list of all the time centralized control has worked. Finished. Never. Centralized control does not work. It does not work. The issue is violence is a very good short-term solution. It is a very terrible long-term solution. I'm hungry, so I hit someone over the head and take a sandwich. I'm not hungry anymore. Great. But in the long term, that's a problem. One, I don't know how to eat. Plus, that person, if they're not dead, is going to come after me. So no matter what, it's a bad long-term solution. So I always want to make violence my last piece, right? Violence should be my absolute last resort for anything. So grandma may be right. For example, the bad guys are coming over the fence. I might need to start shooting. I got it. The bad guys are coming over the fence. But I want to make that my last chance. I don't want to go, I don't like the person, therefore violence. Because if I do that, I don't have a long-term solution. I want the people to not want to do the thing. I want to convince them to not do it. The goal should be to create an environment where most people self-police. It doesn't mean we have to have no police or no violence or no nothing. I want to have the minimum amount of violence possible. That's what I want. But we're humans. We're going to do bad things. Your grandma's going to be right sometimes. Absolutely. But let's move to a world where we have the least amount of violence possible. That's what I want. That's realistic. So just because someone's mad doesn't mean I start shooting. So that's piece number one. Piece number two, I'm sorry. Piece number one was centralized control. The second piece, how do I get people to even hear me? By talking about outcomes first. I don't want to say, for example, are you for school choice? What a terrible way of starting a conversation. I'm making you pick a side off the bat. And if you like school choice, you're going to be on my side. If you're not, now we're fighting. Well, that's terrible. What I should say instead is, hey, you want to have better schools for your kids, right? Everyone goes yes to that. So I've started with the outcome. The outcome is better schools for kids. Then I can start saying, okay, so Allison, if you want better schools for kids, do you think the government's doing a good job right now? Nah, not really. Okay, let's try to make it better. And now we have the conversation. We have to first agree on the outcome. Otherwise, this is the old saying, right? If I don't think that we're on the same side, that we're not looking to achieve the same thing, why would I believe you? I don't even talk to you. You're a bad person. But so I want to start with the outcome in the agree with the outcome first. Then let's start having conversations, because then you'll hear my facts, right? When I talk about education as an example, and I say, do we want it better? They go, yes. And what I often say is, New York State's dropping $29,000 per kid. And they'll go, oh my God, that's too much. That breaks the funding thing. Well, if we just funded them more, now it breaks that. Now we're having a conversation. Where are we spending the money? Should we spend it someplace else? Should we give it to private schools? Now we're having a conversation. That's the next piece. And the last piece I'll bring up is, I don't want to argue. I don't want to debate, because then there's a winner and a loser. I just want to have hundreds of conversations until eventually you go, that Larry guy's right. I hope you do. You might not, but I hope you do. But I hope no matter what, you respect me. I hope no matter what, you respect me at least, and you're going to hear me even if you disagree. That's what I want. But the next piece is, the odds of me convincing you, Allison, of something you don't believe in one conversation are slim to none. Yeah. But if I think I'm right, you and I will talk about it often. And eventually, either I'll go, maybe she's right, or you'll go, maybe he's right. Life is good. So that's how you deal with it.
I appreciate that. I was thinking of it because when you were mentioning about this way of doing things on the news now, where if you're willing to bring on a divergent idea, the only way that you can do it safely is to just by like beating the crap out of them.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So it scares people into feeling like, well, if I'm not willing to do that, then I'm just not going to have those conversations at all. Like I either have to just go to the mat, or I should just dissociate. If you're somebody who's doing it publicly, like I am, I think a lot of, I would just say that if the tone of a lot of the newsrooms that I worked in now, at least the last one that I was in, definitely had that idea that it was like, you were going to have to either be like very aggressive about how you throttled this dissenter, or you just didn't bring them on. And, is there any value in just having a conversation anymore? Or is that where the real danger lies? Because I think when you go out on your own and you do this kind of stuff and you don't follow that model, you do get, I think, figures pointing at you saying like, you're a purveyor of, you're killing people. I mean, you could be doing that, right? That's what they say.
I get dragged online almost daily, and I go on to other shows that their chat is nothing. It's literally insult after vulgarity, after insult, after vulgarity, after insult, after vulgarity. I'm not joking. If you see some of the shows I've been on, that the chat just murders me. And a lot of people can't handle that. I can. That's why I do this, right? This is what I can do. This is my part in the liberty movement, right? The liberty movement is huge. This is my chunk. This is what I do. And that's why I do it, because I'm the guy who goes over there and gets dragged online by 45 dozen people and just gets murdered all day. And I deal with it. It's fine.
Okay. Well, Larry, thanks again. We'll keep in touch, I guess, see what happens with the race. And, if you run again in 4 years, we'll touch base again, but hopefully you'll come back.
Hopefully they'll have some good news in a couple of weeks and I'll be in the ballot.
Well, you have to come back on and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Or, if Don Lemon is out, or maybe somebody else, or maybe somebody will leave Fox or get their show canceled.
Maybe they'll give me a show.
Talk about that.
Maybe they'll give me his show.
Hey, let's make that happen. Actually, okay, two requests for the powers that be. Number one, I asked Brian Stelter to come on back when he was telling everyone that they should post their vaccine selfie. And I thought that was the weirdest thing for a journalist to tell people to do in journalism. So Brian, now that you're going to not be at CNN, I guess you're out of your contract. You can come on my show now. So here's your invitation. And then can Larry have your show? That's the other thing.
Even better.
Not that you necessarily, Brian, have any weight at CNN anymore, but let's just put the idea in there.
I like it.
Okay. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.